Welcome back to our weekly update. I'm Charlotte McLeod with investingnews.com, and this time around we have a special video for you. Heading into the new year, I asked 5 experts for their highest conviction sectors in 2025. Let's take a look at what they had to say. Rick Rule of Rule Investment Media gave options for both speculators and investors when he answered the question, emphasizing that people should know which category they fall into.
I would say it depends on if you're an investor or a speculator. I think if you're a speculator, that you're going to see real moves in the better gold juniors. Real moves, if you can afford to take the risk. Pardon me, Charlotte. If you're an investor, you want to be way overweight the oil and gas space. And if you're a Canadian investor, you want to stay north of the border. If you have a federal election, and if Canadian voters decide to allow the Prime Minister to afford other employment opportunities, I think you see the Canadian oil and gas sector basically double overnight. But on a BTU equivalent basis, Canadian natural gas is just too cheap.
Rule wasn't the only market watcher to mention gold. It came up numerous times in my conversations, and to keep some variety in this list, I won't name them all. But before we move on, let's hear from Gareth Soloway of verifiedinvesting.com about why he thinks the precious metal will be 2025's best performing asset.
Oh, goodness. Good question. I would have to take gold. And again, for me, it's the risk that if we go to 107 on Bitcoin, let's say, we could pull back to 75 next year. Again, I don't know where we'll be at the end of the year, but that drawdown is a hefty drawdown of 30% or so at that point. And then if we look at the stock market is honestly even more concerning to me than Bitcoin up at these levels after this big run. The stock market, the valuations, the metrics, the Buffett rule, all of these indicators are flashing extreme overbought. And I think the market is due for, not just a quick dip like we saw in August where we dropped, 15-10% really quickly, but I think a more sustained bear market. And I think it's going to come when we see a recession. And this is the kicker. A recession is okay if the Fed can cut rates to zero like they did after COVID, or, then we can do it, right? Then the market's like, yay, we're getting cheap or free money. But my thesis for 2025 is that inflation will still be slightly elevated and the Fed will not be able to use its tools like usual to get us out of that recession, which means further downside in equity prices.
Copper is at the top of the list for Lobo Tiggre of independentspeculator.com, although he did consider silver as well. Here's why he ultimately went with the red metal.
I thought about silver. As we were just talking about, it's easier to see silver going up, say 50%, or even possibly a double. That would be a reach, but it's easier to see than gold, much easier to see than uranium. But actually, I had to go with copper. For the reasons that I just cited, silver's volatility, its tendency to lag. For 2025, I'm not sure that this is the year for silver. And it's easier for me to see copper going up 50% or even a double from here. We've got a squeeze. We've got projects that are late, or we've had nationalizations. We've got delays and extensions. We've got permitting problems. You get roadblocks. Because theoretically, the copper market is close to imbalance right now, and then the supply shortage that everybody's been talking about, that grows over the years and decades to come. But theoretically right now, it's theoretically not like this huge shortage. But the problem is reality is never like the theories. Mines always take longer to build up than you expect. They cost more, they're late. And like I say, we've got shutdowns and roadblocks and nationalizations and all these problems with supply. Meanwhile, demand is doing that.
David Morgan of the Morgan Report is best known for his silver commentary, but when asked about his highest conviction sector for 2025, he went in another direction.
I think it'll be energy. Energy is the most important one of all, and I think there may be a rethinking of how we're going to use the energy that exists and marry it with the renewables in the most efficient manner, because really the return of what's called EROI, energy return on energy invested, is the way to look at it, not how much it costs. You can print an infinite amount of funny money. I think that will be, and I hope it will be, the best move that we're able to do and to rethink the best way to move forward on the energy sector. I mean, the renewables, I'll leave alone on my comment, but what we need is more energy, not less. And the renewables produce some, but they're not nearly as efficient as the dirty hydrocarbons. Yet, these AI structures take a lot more energy. Look at what Bitcoin takes in energy. It takes more energy, not less. So that would be my answer.
Frank Holmes of US Global Investors made a similar point, saying that energy demand from the fast-growing artificial intelligence sector will make data centers important to watch.
I think data centers. I think that some of the best performing Bitcoin miners, it's only because they have electricity, and people in need with NVIDIA chips can't find the electricity, so they come in, and Core Scientific a year ago was 50 cents, and it goes to $15 because of electricity. And they can fast track the building of those data centers for the AI boom. So the AI boom, if you miss NVIDIA being early, then the real stable part are going to be data centers. And we hear some promoters talking about making the biggest data center in Alberta. The federal government, Canada, is talking about it, etc. Those companies that have access to electricity that's stable are going to become the best performers, which I think.
You can find the links to the full interviews with Rick Rule, Gareth Soloway, Lobo Tiggre, David Morgan, and Frank Holmes in the video description if you'd like to hear more.